The causes of shipwrecks can include factors such as storms, wars, and deliberate sinking. Every vessel has its own unique history, from its construction at the shipyard to the end of its service. Unfortunately, most ships meet a tragic end. The crew of 3 went missing under unexplained circumstances in mid-April 2007 aboard the Australian fishing catamaran Kaz 2. The yacht, adrift, was accidentally spotted from a helicopter. Upon thorough inspection, it was found to be in perfect working condition, as if the crew were still on board. Food and cutlery were arranged on the table, the laptop was on, and the yacht's engine was running. No signs of a struggle or attack on the vessel were discovered. The military cargo carried by the ship Thistlegorm, consisting of ammunition, bombs, hundreds of BSAW M20 motorcycles, Ford trucks, and other equipment, never reached the 8th British Army. On the night of October 6, 1941, 2 German Heinkel 111 bombers attacked the anchored Thistlegorm. An onboard explosion of ammunition followed, and the ship soon sank. What is now a desert once held the Aral Sea, where a ship graveyard now lies. Since the 1960s, the sea's level and water volume have rapidly declined due to the diversion of its main feeding rivers, the Amu Darya and Sir Darya. The sea had 3 seaports on its shores and was home to 30 species of fish. Today, only these rusting ships serve as a reminder of the once vast sea. The H.L. Hunley was a submarine of the Confederate States of America, built in 1863 during the American Civil War. Its crew consisted of a commanding officer and 7 oarsmen, who powered the crankshaft of the propeller. The submarine met its end due to mechanical damage caused by an explosion. In August 2000, it was raised from a depth of 8 meters. The remains of its crew were examined and laid to rest in 2004. In 1968, the cargo ship Cabo Santa Maria ran aground near the island of Cape Verde, where it remains to this day. It was carrying a valuable cargo of luxury cars, goods, various ornaments, and foodstuffs. For a whole year, islanders, including children, unloaded its cargo and transported it to the town of Sal Rey. The ship itself remains an eternal guardian of the island's shores. The cruise ship Lyubov Orlova was built in 1976 at a shipyard in Yugoslavia with factory number 413. In 2013, the ship was being towed for dismantling in the Dominican Republic when, on the second day of towing, the tow line broke and the ship drifted away. No verified information about the ship exists since then. It most likely sank in the Atlantic Ocean. The waves tossed the Maritime like a splinter, while the ice in Ardley Bay battered its hull. Eventually, the ship sank. The 4 crew members sent an SOS signal and were rescued 2 days later in severe weather conditions. The Maritime was later recovered from the seabed, but the $700,000 insurance payout did not cover its restoration. The passenger steamer SS Yongala was built in England in 1903. 8 years later, it sank with 122 passengers and crew on board during a severe storm. There was no chance of rescue, as large waves made it impossible to lower lifeboats. Today, the Yongala is a major tourist attraction for diving enthusiasts. after the cruise liner MS World Discovery struck a reef and suffered a breach on its starboard side. The captain ran the ship aground to avoid any casualties. No one was harmed. The incident occurred on April 30th, 2000. It is now a popular tourist site. Since 1972, the SS Airfield has been stranded in the Parramatta River estuary. The rusty hull of the ship is adorned with evergreen mangrove foliage growing in its cabins and on its decks. The 1,140-ton SS Airfield was launched in 1911 in the United Kingdom and transported cargo for the U.S. military during the Pacific Campaign of World War II. The cargo ship Plassey, carrying whiskey, stained glass, and yarn, encountered a violent storm. Large waves cast it onto the rocky shores of Inisheer Island in Ireland. The wreck occurred in 1960, but the crew survived unscathed. Over the past 64 years, the remains of the ship have steadily deteriorated. The refrigerated cargo ship MV Evangelia, in its 26th year of service, was wrecked in 1968. It ran aground near the Romanian beach of Costanești on the Black Sea, where it remains to this day. Two large sections of the hull are missing from the starboard side, and the ship's superstructure has collapsed. There is speculation that the sinking of the MV Evangelia was deliberately staged to claim insurance money. The concrete oil tanker SS Selma was completed and launched in 1919 by companies in Mobile, Alabama. On May 31, 1920, the 7,500-ton vessel collided with a pier in Tampico, Mexico, creating a 60-foot gash in its hull. After failed repair attempts in Galveston and unsuccessful attempts to sell the ship, U.S. authorities decided to intentionally scuttle it. Today, the SS Selma serves as a historic landmark on the water. A group of researchers discovered an abandoned, rusting military ship. Historians identified it as HMS Valor, a naval vessel that had disappeared under mysterious circumstances more than 50 years ago. Divers found numerous personal belongings of the sailors on board, but the crew's disappearance remains a mystery. One theory suggests they encountered some inexplicable extraterrestrial life. This concrete tanker was built at the end of World War I using concrete due to a shortage of metal. It measures 130 meters in length and 16 meters in width. Deemed unnecessary, the SS Palo Alto was deliberately grounded near Seacliff State Beach in Monterey Bay in 1929. Today, it serves as a fishing pier and local attraction. On the sandy shores of Fraser Island, off Australia's east coast, lies the SS Maheno. Although no definitive data exists about the ship, a song tells its story. Built in Scotland in 1905, the Maheno served during World War I. In 1935, a violent storm cast the ship ashore, where it remains to this day. The Galaxy was a former hotel designed as a ship, fully seaworthy and located on Koh Chang Island, Thailand. Owned by Thai billionaire Oran Asavaritakul, the 7-story vessel featured 70 luxuriously furnished rooms, elevators, high-quality staff, and a pool. Despite its grandeur, the Galaxy failed to attract popularity and soon shut down. Due to poor maintenance while transporting logs, the Scottish ship Telemon began leaking and ran aground near Costa Teguise on October 31, 1981. A storm in 1985 split the ship into two parts. The rear section was destroyed, while the front remains at the wreck site 43 years later. Incredibly, the three-masted ship Endurance undertook a trans-Antarctic expedition in 1915. On October 24th, the starboard side was breached under heavy ice pressure. For 3 days, the crew battled -27°C temperatures to pump water from the holds and repair the breach. After 107 years, on March 9, 2022, the ship was discovered at a depth of 3,008 meters in remarkably good condition. Sailors affirm that the actions of one crew member can determine the safe navigation of a ship. In 1983, a dramatic event unfolded when the Giannis D, carrying timber, struck the northeastern edge of Abu Nuhas Reef due to the captain's inattention. The ship did not sink immediately, and the crew was rescued with the help of the Egyptian vessel Santa Fe. The Giannis D lies at a depth of 27 meters, making it a popular diving site. During its maiden voyage, the Titanic, a passenger and cargo steamer, struck an iceberg on the night of April 14th to 15th, 1912, and sank in the North Atlantic. The iceberg caused several breaches in the hull, leading to the ship's demise. Of 2,240 passengers and crew, the bow and stern lie deeply embedded in the seabed and are in fragile condition, making recovery impossible. The Cincinnati Ghost Ship is visible today when traveling up a creek on the Ohio River in Kentucky. This rusting hull attracts only tourists now. But in its time, it participated in both World Wars and had a cameo in Madonna's "Papa Don't Preach" music video. In the late 1980s, Robert Miller of Lawrenceburg purchased the ship for a mere $7,500, but no restoration work was ever carried out. A fleet of concrete ships off the southern coast of Virginia serves as a breakwater. During World War I, the demand for ships soared, but metal was scarce and much more expensive than concrete. By 1919, over 1,000 concrete ships had been built across various countries. The steamship Mary D. Hume was built in 1881 in Oregon from local timber. It served until the 1970s, making it the oldest operating commercial vessel on the West Coast. In 1985, restoration efforts began to preserve it for a museum, but a mechanical failure caused it to slip from its rigging and settle in the mud at Gold Beach, where it remains to this day. There are no verified records of how the Demetrios ended up on the sandy shore near Githio, Greece. Popular theories suggest it was used for smuggling cigarettes between Turkey and Italy. According to rumors, the ship was seized by Githio port authorities and later burned to destroy evidence of smuggling. Another, less accepted theory claims it is a ghost ship of unknown origin. During Hurricane Francis in 2004, the La Famille Express ran aground on the Caicos Bank. The vessel is riddled with dangerous holes in its hull and deck, sharp metal shards, broken glass, and hazardous dust from old paint, iron oxide, synthetics, and petroleum products. Boaters in the area are advised to exercise caution due to jagged metal fragments nearby. The remains of the HMVS Cerberus lie at a depth of about 3 meters and less than 200 meters from the shore in Half Moon Bay. It now serves as a breakwater. Named after Cerberus, the three-headed watchdog of Hades in Greek mythology, the ship features two circular turrets that once housed 10-inch guns. The Cerberus served in the Royal Australian Navy from 1871 to 1924. Severe weather at sea can result in significant losses for ship owners. In 1994, the towing cable of the Boss 400 floating crane snapped due to high waves and 35 meters per second winds. The powerless crane was cast onto rocks near Cape Town, where it remains. The Boss 400 is one of the most powerful floating cranes, with a lifting capacity of 1,200 tons and an estimated value of $70 million. The Staten Island Ship Graveyard is a somber site in the northwest of the island. It emerged after World War II, when Vitt Marine Equipment Company began accepting abandoned ships to dismantle and sell their remains for scrap metal. These vessels, once worthy of museum exhibits, now serve as a reminder of their fleeting existence. The whaling ship Gabra 64 was launched the same year as the ill-fated Titanic. It served its owners for several decades before being deemed unsafe in 1981. Instead of scuttling or scrapping it, the owner beached the ship in Scapadalur Valley, where it now slowly deteriorates. It has become a popular site for photographers and tourists. The American transatlantic liner SS United States was the last recipient of the Blue Riband, awarded to ocean liners for speed records crossing the North Atlantic. Built in 1951, it was highly popular among Americans for transatlantic voyages in the 1950s. In 2016, restoration was deemed impossible due to insurmountable challenges. The ship currently rests in Philadelphia. The MV Kalakala was known as the world's first streamlined ship due to its unique Art Deco design. From 1935 to 1967, it operated in Puget Sound. Over the years, it changed owners and was even converted into a shrimp processing plant. In 2015, the ship was scrapped, with only the wheelhouse and rudder preserved and sold as souvenirs. In 2003, the fishing vessel High Aim 6 was discovered adrift in Australian waters without its crew. No signs of distress or a struggle were found, and the ship had ample fuel and provisions. One Indonesian crew member, who was located on shore, revealed that Captain Chen Tai Cheng and mechanic Lin Chun Lee had been killed. However, the exact events and the motive for the mutiny remain unclear. "I remember when the boat was left out on the street and its owner walked away," said Marine Services Manager Rebecca Dixon. The small, old vessel Point Reyes shipwreck could have been scrapped long ago, but a group of photographers fought to preserve it. Thanks to social media attention and even a music video, the iconic boat has remained untouched. The Costa Concordia is the largest shipwreck in history. With 15 decks, 4 pools, 5 restaurants, a casino, and 1,450 luxurious cabins, the ship struck a rocky reef near Giglio Island, sustaining a breach and starting to sink. Most passengers and crew were rescued, but 32 people lost their lives. In 2013, the ship was raised and subsequently scrapped for metal. In December 1925, the crew of the SS Cotopaxi radioed a distress call. reporting that the ship had taken on water and listed during a tropical storm. The wreckage was found in the 1980s, but was not identified until January 2022, after a 15-year investigation by Michael Barnett. The ship gained fictional fame in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where it was depicted as mysteriously transported to the Gobi Desert by extraterrestrial forces. The Antikythera wreck is a Roman-era shipwreck. Divers exploring the site uncovered numerous statues, coins, and other artifacts dating back to the 4th century BCE. In October 2019, a bronze arm from a sculpture and additional fragments of bronze and marble statues were recovered. On May 7, 1915, a German U-20 submarine torpedoed the RMS Lusitania, a large 4-funneled passenger liner. The ship sank in 18 minutes, 19 kilometers off the coast of Ireland, at a depth of 93 meters. Of the 1,960 people on board, 1,196 perished. The sinking of the Lusitania played a significant role in turning public opinion, particularly in the United States, against Germany. Despite the vastness of the ocean, ship collisions still occur. In 1956, the SS Andrea Doria collided with the Swedish liner Stockholm in dense fog 45 nautical miles south of Nantucket. Although 49 people perished across both vessels, the rescue of the Andrea Doria passengers is considered one of the most successful maritime rescues in history. During its final trading voyage in 1931, the SS Bachimo, laden with furs, became trapped in pack ice. The crew temporarily abandoned the ship to walk over half a mile across the ice to the town of Barrow. Upon their return, the ship had disappeared. Believed to have sunk, it was later sighted multiple times by seal hunters, earning its reputation as a ghost ship. The last recorded sighting was by a group of Inuit in 1969. The sinking of the passenger ferry MV Doña Paz after colliding with the oil tanker Vector on December 20th, 1987, is the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster, surpassing the sinking of the Titanic. The tragedy claimed 4,386 lives. Oil from the tanker ignited, and flames quickly engulfed the ferry, setting the surrounding waters ablaze. Neither vessel sent an SOS signal, and rescue efforts began only 8 hours later. The Sweepstakes is one of the best preserved 19th century shipwrecks in the Great Lakes. This 37-meter, two-masted schooner, built in 1867, was used by Canadians to transport coal for 18 years. In 1885, the schooner ran aground and sank in shallow waters near Tobermory, resting at a depth of approximately 6 meters. On Fraser Island's shore in Australia lie the remains of the SS Mojano. Each year, saltwater and air corrode the ship's metal further. Originally designed as a luxury liner for wealthy passengers crossing the Tasman Sea, the ship was repurposed during World War I as a hospital vessel, transporting wounded soldiers from France to England. In 1970, the Soviet light cruiser Murmansk participated in the largest naval exercise in Soviet history, Ocean. Decommissioned and disarmed in 1992, the ship was lost 2 years later during towing in the Norwegian Sea when its cable snapped in 15-meter waves. The Murmansk ran aground on the rocky shores of Soraya Island, Norway. Its dismantling became the most expensive ship disposal in Norwegian history, costing 328 million Norwegian kroner, During a severe storm on November 10, 1975, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, the largest freighter on the Great Lakes, sank and remains the largest shipwreck in the region. All 29 crew members perished, and their bodies were never recovered. Before sinking, the captain had reported damage to the ship and conveyed his last message: "We are holding our own." On April 27, 1865, the SS Sultana experienced a catastrophic boiler explosion 8 miles upriver from Memphis. The blast caused the decks, filled with sleeping passengers, to collapse, and one smokestack was thrown overboard. Another smokestack fell onto the crowded forward superstructure. The ship remained afloat for about an hour after the explosion. This tragic disaster claimed over 1,700 lives. The flagship vessel, Mamie S. Barrett, was built in 1921 for $145,000 and launched the same year. In 1937, it served the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Florence, Alabama, before passing through several owners. In 1990, plans were made to convert it into a casino, but these were never realized. In 2016, the historic ship washed ashore in Louisiana, where it remains in a severely deteriorated state. The SS Indianapolis completed its most secret mission in July 1945, delivering uranium and other components for the atomic bomb to the U.S. naval base at Tinian. On July 30, 1945, the heavy cruiser was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine and sank. Of the 1,196 crew members, 883 perished. On the morning of December 14, 2002, the 50,000-ton Norwegian vessel MV Tricolor collided with the Bahamian container ship Kariba in dense fog, 30 kilometers off the French coast. The MV Tricolor sank at the collision site, carrying 2,871 new cars, including BMWs, Volvos, and Saabs. Salvaging the ship required heavy-duty cranes and took over a year to complete. In the early 1960s, a memorial was built over the submerged hull of the battleship USS Arizona to honor the victims of the Pearl Harbor attack. On December 7th each year, a Christian memorial service is held for the 1,177 sailors and airmen who perished aboard. The Arizona sank after being bombed by Japanese aircraft on December 7th, 1941, at its mooring in Pearl Harbor. On one of Greece's southern islands lies the MV Panayotis, shipwrecked on white sands. Built in 1937, the coaster was carrying a cargo of smuggled cigarettes for the Italian mafia during a 1980 voyage from Turkey. Pursued by the Greek Navy and facing stormy weather, the vessel ran aground in a shallow bay and the crew fled. This account was later confirmed by court documents and photographs. Over a century has passed since the Peter Iredale ran aground. The rusting remnants of its bow and masts still protrude from the sand at Fort Stevens State Park. In 1906, strong winds and seas drove the ship ashore. An attempt to refloat it was abandoned after weeks of waiting for favorable weather, leaving the ship to settle in the sand permanently. The experimental gunboat HMS Vixen was launched by the British Royal Navy in 1865. Weighing 1,250 tons, it was among the most heavily armored ships of its time, with a crew of 80 and a variety of weapons on board. However, it proved ineffective during sea trials and was towed to Bermuda, where it served as a stationary defensive battery. After being decommissioned, valuable equipment was removed and the ship was scuttled. The USS Kittiwake, a U.S. Navy submarine rescue vessel, operated from 1946 to 1994, performing numerous submarine recovery missions. Divers frequently descended from its deck for underwater searches. After decommissioning, it was deliberately sunk, creating a popular diving and snorkeling site off Grand Cayman. Enormous ghost ships aren't just the stuff of fantasy, they exist in reality too. These drifting vessels pose significant collision risks. Those who dare to board them often find either the lifeless remains of sailors or nothing at all.